Welcome everyone. How's your January into February been?
Awesome.
Wow, what a mind-blowing transformational phase or period we've all been experiencing, just not just personally but globally. And it's interesting to watch. Have any of you been watching the charade in Washington and the impeachment process? And Trump's still standing and doing his thing. Yeah, it's just a message that when a particular petty tyrant or challenge in our lives, or personally and globally, has not vanished yet, it's still an ongoing teaching that needs to deepen and fulfill its purpose before it can shift and change. Saturn continues to be in Capricorn until March 21st. It shifts into Aquarius, so we begin to understand the future purpose and meaning of this grand teaching that we're all experiencing about the right use of power. And I certainly have been, on a personal level, been experiencing a deep internal transformational process in the right use of my own personal power and the foundation upon which it stands. And we'll notice that certain people show up in our lives to test our integrity, let's put it that way, to find out where our integrity stands. Capricorn reflects back into Cancer, the sign of Cancer, which is where we feel emotionally safe, comfortable, nurtured, and where we belong, our home. So many of us have been challenged in feeling at home on this planet, or at home in the place that we live, or the relationships that we have formed that are meaningful to us. Anyone experiencing that? A little bit? So I knew that January was going to be a tipping point with that Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn on January 12th, that we would kind of reference our lives to the life we've lived before January 12th and the life that began to unfold afterwards, in terms of how we understand our relationship to our own personal power, our integrity, the place we stand, and the medicine that we carry. So those of us who have really made a commitment to be a part of the global awakening have most likely been targeted by forces that don't particularly like us, and don't want us to break through and succeed and recognize the beauty and power of our own being, and particularly the gifts that we carry. So the greatest and most fundamental challenge they will present is focusing on the gift that you carry, its nature, its purpose, its meaning, its value to others around you, and the right use of that gift in relationship to yourself and others. Do you all feel confident in the medicine that you carry? That's really the big question mark with this Capricorn stellium that we've been experiencing, and how we stand in our community and the world around us to make our contribution to leave this world a better place. So have you all been feeling a little challenged in the medicine you carry, the purpose for which you have been prepared, and the gift that you now feel confident in sharing with others? And that's what's being refined and deepened in understanding, the nature of the gift that we carry and how to perfect it. Because Capricorn is about our internal authority and how deeply we feel connected to a foundation upon which we can put weight down on. And that's the Cancerian reflection of the test or challenge of our public stance. It's how deeply we feel connected, emotionally supported in sharing the gifts that we carry. So I personally have been definitely challenged in that respect, and that's why January for me was a good time to take some time off and take some time for deep reflection. And I know the Chai Shop here is going through its own transformation to create a more solid foundation that can last and that can stand over time. Because whenever we're dealing with Capricorn, we're dealing with that which stands the test of time, that which has long-term meaning and consequence in our lives, that can be carried into the future in a sustainable way, that has a solid foundation. So whenever we're dealing with Capricorn Cancer axis, we're dealing with the foundations upon which we stand that we can emotionally trust with the Cancer reflection. So having said that, we've just had a major shift on a very personal level with the hypothetical point of Lilith. Have you all followed? You all know what Lilith is? It's the apogee of the moon. It's the point at which the moon reaches its furthest distance from the Earth, and it's an elliptical orbit of the moon, and that point is identified by astrologers as Lilith. Lilith has a 9-year cycle, and wherever Lilith is, we tend to face the shadow. And Lilith just entered Aries on January 27th, starting a whole new 9-year cycle. So the last time Lilith was in Aries, the last cycle began in March of 2011. And the last 9 months, it's been in Pisces. And the transition from Pisces for Lilith has been testing our faith in Pisces for the last 9 months. And what is that faith connected to? It's connected to that higher order of love that transcends our personal experience here. And it translates in the modern term as faith. Faith in the higher power. Faith in the exalted power of love to give meaning to our lives. So Lilith can be a very personally challenging point in our lives, wherever Lilith is in your natal chart, or transiting Lilith. And in the last 9 months, we may have experienced really tests to our faith in the higher power of love and working in our personal relationships. And the transition from Pisces to Aries for Lilith is, if that faith is lost in the higher order or power of love working in our lives to our personal relationships, when she shifts into Aries, there's a radical reclamation of self, of your essential magnetic space. The phrase that I got was the radical reclamation of one's own energetic field. And that's the shift that just started to occur with Lilith having entered Aries on January 27th. She will remain in Aries for the next 9 months. Anyone familiar with the mythology of Lilith? In the religious context, she was the one who they dumped all the sins on and then sent her out into the desert, to carry the sins of the community of the world, and to basically die out in the desert. So Lilith as a dark point, because that point in space is dark. There's nothing there. There's a loss of identity, complete loss of identity, and the fundamental experience of abandonment. And in that abandoned state, it's having to reclaim yourself and say, whoa, I've just lost myself completely. I'm feeling completely misunderstood and unrecognized, and I need to reclaim myself. That's the Lilith and Aries transition that has just begun to occur. And this is true for all of us on a very deeply personal level. But it's being amplified because Chiron is also in Aries, has entered Aries in February of last year. So we've had a year of being challenged to reclaim ourselves, the wounded aspect of ourselves that doesn't feel acknowledged and supported in being ourselves and being true to ourselves. We've had a year of practice with Chiron in Aries of being true to the authentic nature of our drive for personal well-being and happiness. That Aries is our drive, ruled by Mars, for our own personal well-being and happiness. It's being divinely authentic and selfish in a healthy way. If we can't honor self, and the right we have to pursue our own desires and happiness and well-being, then we can't honor others. We're always seeking to honor ourselves by serving others, and through their happiness, then gaining our own happiness. And that can only go so far. You reach a tipping point where you say, what about me just going after my own happiness, and being happy in my own right, and taking my own well-being seriously enough, and being authentic in pursuing my own personal well-being. So that's been a test that's been going on for the last year with Chiron and Aries. Chiron always points out where we personally and globally have been challenged on a personal level as a medicine path to reclaim a particular aspect of our being. And in Aries, it's reclaiming the right to have be fulfilled on a very deeply personal level and go out into the world and adventure and play for the right and sake of our own personal well-being. So with Lilith just having entered Aries, she's now approaching Chiron in Aries on March 3rd. So this is a building process of Lilith and Chiron combining their energies. This is like a 51-year cycle. This hasn't occurred for over 50 years, of any aspect of our being that does feel unrecognized or unacknowledged or unsupported, and going after and pursuing our own personal well-being and authenticity and happiness really coming to the surface. And Lilith, because Lilith is a female, a warrior goddess. She was the wild woman who was abandoned to the nature spirits lost in the wild, because she was too wild for the civilized order of things. So Lilith was banished to the wilderness because she tended to create havoc wherever she expressed her raw power. She did not follow the rules, and she was chaos incarnate. Yes. And she became, in the religious context, associated with evil, because wherever she showed up, there was like no controlling her. It's like, and particularly in Aries now, it's like that wild aspect of the feminine that can be chaotic and present itself as a danger to the established order, not just on a global level, on a very personal level, can be experienced as too wild to invite into your sacred space, let's say. And she's like now rising into the public view. I remember, did any of you watch the State of the Union speech? No. Yeah. Well, it wasn't the State. That Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, it wasn't the State of the Union speech. But when Nancy Pelosi did afterwards, right. You all hear about that? Yeah. She's standing there behind Trump. Trump refuses to shake her hand, first of all, which is really not very cool. So she's standing there, and she takes the State of the Union address, which has been placed on the pew there, in a printed form, and just tears it up right in front of everybody. That's what I'm talking about. And this wild feminine can rise, and its first stage of reclaiming herself can be really almost warlike. It's like, suppressed anger, rage over being abandoned, called evil, banished to the wilderness. Like when she reappears, she's a little pissed off. So the first stage of that Lilith in Aries can be almost warlike. You cannot deny my presence. I'm going to, speak really loudly, and if you have a problem with that, I'm sorry. And all that just suppressed rage over the woundedness of being abandoned and judged as evil then comes out in a warlike state. And that's the first stage of Lilith in Aries, which then breaks the spell of the being suppressed. It's like pushing a spring against the wall. Once you release the spring, it goes, it overreacts. Have any of you been experiencing any of this?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, we have a few hands raised here. I know I have on a very deeply personal level, and it's It's part of the emergence of hidden aspects of the wild feminine and the empowerment process of the feminine that can start in kind of a messy way, but needs to actually now be acknowledged and recognized and cannot be denied any longer. So over the next 9 months, as Lilith, especially as by the beginning of March, when Lilith combines with Chiron also, the wounded quality of not being recognized and honored for your right to pursue your own personal well-being and authenticity will become a major theme on a global and personal level, which it already has for many.
How will that show itself?
How will that show us up?
Yeah.
Some pissed off females.
Wow. I feel like everyone's going to be having trouble with certain people.
I'm not just saying Lilith can't be expressed by men as well. But primarily it's the banished female coming back into the circle. Saying I got some things to say, and I can't be denied any longer. And I don't care if you don't like it or not. I'm barking in here.
So women exploding.
Yeah, well, men too, but it's primarily the banished feminine reappearing, because it is Aries. It's warlike. The image that comes to my mind is Athena, the Roman goddess Athena. She was considered by the Romans the goddess of war. She's the one who started the Trojan War. It's the combination of that Pallas Athena energy, but there's certain denied and abandoned and judged aspects of our being, particularly in regarding our right to be happy, the right to pursue what Mars really drives us to get up in the morning and pursue our own personal happiness. Those who are your allies will recognize and support your right to choose the things that make your heart happy, and they really give you energy. Mars is like a little boy in the playground. Just wants to ride all the rides and have fun. So those who have a problem with your just going out and playing with life and adventuring and having fun, you'll notice will try to limit your freedom, or take it personally that you don't love them, you don't support them, because you want to go out and play, and you're not really focused solely on their right to be happy. So what I suggest here is a lot of space, and then you to not just honor yourself and your right to choose those things that give you energy, Mars, but also support others in doing the same, where they're free to be authentic with themselves and pursue their own personal well-being. And if those things that align with your personal well-being align with another as well, you find you're both getting excited to go ride the merry-go-round together. And if your partner wants to go ride the roller coaster instead, don't take it personally, like that person doesn't love you. They just want to go ride the roller coaster. You can go ride the merry-go-round and both have fun, but not try to limit the or judge the other person's natural enthusiasm to go participate in life and do certain things. So what I'm suggesting here is a lot of breathing, and to really know that if you both enjoy riding the roller coaster together, you'll wind up at the same place at the same time and have fun riding that same roller coaster. Is that a little clearer? Yeah. But the way it's going to be playing out on a political level is that much of the suppressed female participation in the political process is now going to become more and more evident, and those with Mars, with Aries emphasized in their charts, will really be playing a leading role in breaking the field open beyond what's expected. And Bernie Sanders has Mars and Aries, and toward the end of the year especially, he'll be leading the charge.
Eric, did you see that there were 6 tornadoes today in the Washington, D.C. area?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So, wow, yeah. So since we're talking about Aries, wherever Mars currently is, plays a leading role in the expression of that Martian energy. Mars currently is in Sagittarius and will then shift into Capricorn the same day that Mercury turns retrograde on February 16th. Mercury is already in Pisces, slowing down, so we're already feeling the effect of that. And Mercury in Pisces is said to be in detriment or in a challenging position because Mercury in Pisces is the voice of the spirit. And it can have a difficult time expressing itself and communicating because of the high frequency of what's being challenged through the mental body in relationship to these higher frequencies, particularly the power of love itself, moving through the mind and seeking to express itself in verbal form. Mercury can also express itself through image, through poetry. The image that comes to mind is Rumi or Kabir, where they were expressing this divine love through their mind, through verbal communication, but in poetic form and image. So many of us may feel this reconnection to the exalted aspect of love, strengthening now again, after having been so challenged in January, as an opportunity to reconnect vertically to that greater love that's pouring through us, and reestablish our faith that we have the opportunity now to experience that divine or higher order love in a deeply personal way, because Mercury is also always about our personal experience here in our everyday life. Mercury is the everyday rhythm of our lives. So many of us now are reimagining or reopening to the experience of that greater love being expressed in our personal relationships and our lives as a whole. And this will deepen throughout the next couple of months because Mercury will go retrograde, turn direct in early March, and then in Aquarius, go back into Aquarius, and then re-enter Pisces for the latter part of March. So we're having this divine portal, this angelic portal open to us now, saying that, well, if you survive January and this test of power, love is real. You know, you can trust love, and you can reopen your heart to experience the angelic presence of that, the power of love in your life as a living experience, now that you've found a deeper foundation upon which you can stand. So, yeah, January was like a rumble in the jungle. It's like, wow, you know, the very foundations of our lives and our being tested to find solid ground. So, if you've begun to find solid ground again, that gives you the confidence and the anchor for that greater love then to reestablish yourself in a deeper way in your lives as a living experience. So when Mars shifts into Capricorn on the same day, joining Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, Mars then begins to activate and energize that Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto conjunction, or stellium, in a very personal way. As Mars shifts into Capricorn, it begins to apply to Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto later in March. We may feel like our greater purpose is now really beginning to show itself. We're beginning to understand how to take personal action in regards to making the contribution for which we were born, which we've been prepared since the day we were born. And that it's time to really commit, Capricorn, to being the catalyst for the awakening of the planet and establishing ourselves in a meaningful way with the medicine we carry. So, as a consequence of that medicine being tested, we perfected certain aspects of it. We understand its natural foundation. And starting the latter half of this month, as Mars shifts into Capricorn, we begin to understand how to actually establish ourselves at this new level of self-realization with the medicine we carry. Right now, Mars is still in Sag, so it's still kind of wild, and we're still looking for understanding and perfecting our understanding, Sagittarius, of the right way to proceed. And as it shifts into Capricorn, we'll have that understanding necessary to know where to fully commit. So the full commitment is coming shortly and will perfect itself throughout the rest of February, especially by the end of March. We will really then have a feeling of the solid ground that we've now established within our own being, and the integrity of our own being, upon which we can then make our contribution.
So it's starting from the end of February into the end of March.
Yes, Mars shifts into Capricorn at February 16th.
Okay.
But it's Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto are at the latter part Capricorn, so it'll take until the end of March, the second half of March, but for Mars to reach Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, and then begin a whole new cycle of manifestation, because that begins a synod, a 2-year synod with those particular planets of a new level of manifestation beginning. In particular, with this Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto stellium, huge. This is like not just, Mars returning to either Jupiter, Saturn, or Pluto is a huge beginning of a new cycle of manifestation. But returning to all three within a very short period of time, that's massive. So by the end of March, the vernal equinox occurs on March 19th. Mars shifts into, the Sun shifts into Aries, and will also begin to really pick up that Aries energy, the latter part of March as well, with the Sun entering Aries. So that's really just a real. It's a marker. The end of March are really taking our place and knowing how to where to make the commitment to do our giveaway and be a part of the greater picture unfolding of this huge culmination of history unfolding, so that we can make a meaningful contribution to the people around us. So between now and the end of March, we'll still be kind of experimenting with and perfecting position we hold within our community and the world at large in terms of what our true or long-term Capricorn contribution is to be. Okay?
What if a person has Mars running directly through their body? Because Glenn had told me that. Does that affect
Mars running directly through your body?
Yeah.
Well, Mars is our physical energy, so it runs directly through all of our bodies.
He said Mars is one way and Uranus is the other. He said he'd never seen it before.
Okay.
So I just wondered if it affects you even more.
I have no idea what he was talking about, so.
I didn't either. He said he hadn't seen it in 40 years, though.
Okay. Well, then you have to tell us what that means,
Yeah.
because you're living it. So, the Saturn-Pluto combination that we're experiencing now, as an opportunity, Saturn is always connected with our mastery. The mastery that results from a long period of direct experience in a particular field of being. Pluto is the Kundalini energy itself, rising from the base of the spine. So Saturn combining with Pluto is the mastery of the Kundalini. Its power and its raw transformational power rising with tremendous force. It's like a volcano erupting. Pluto can be experienced that way. It can overwhelm your being. It can overwhelm your space, your life, the entire structure of your understanding of yourself. Saturn comes in and says, this is a dragon you need to learn how to ride and to master, to channel in a conscious and purposeful way through vertical alignment. So Saturn-Pluto in Capricorn is the mastery of the integrity of our being, to rise to full adult stature and know where our inner authority lies as a result of the wisdom we've gained from direct experience. In any true initiation, you cannot know or understand the nature of the initiation until you're complete with it. So whenever I'm in the middle of an initiation, I don't try to figure it out. I can't, because the experience is still unfolding. So when I'm crawling on my hands and knees, and they're telling me, brother, if you pass, you survive. I said, okay, just keep crawling on your hands and knees, stay with the experience, and know that this is a profound transformational experience or initiation you're going through. You can't possibly understand because it's not complete yet. And just stay with it. Allow the experience itself to be your teacher. And as you come out the other end of it, and begin to re-emerge with a sense of things making sense again, the greater purpose or gift of the initiation then begins to reveal itself to you in the fact that you're not the same person any longer. You've been completely and deeply transformed by this transformational experience. So that's pretty much what we're still in the early stages of the Saturn-Pluto, and it will continue to unfold, particularly through March 21st, when Saturn enters Aquarius, to highlight and perfect our capacity to respect ourselves. Because as you recognize the gift you carry, the unique wisdom you gain, because there's no one else who's had the identical personal experience you've had, there's a certain wisdom that only you can bring to the circle. You recognize that your own unique gifts, that your own personal experience, the uniqueness of your own personal experience is brought to you that no one else can offer. And that's being perfected now. And the Saturn into Aquarius transition, if Saturn, whenever Saturn shifts is significant, but it's even more significant because of Pluto and Jupiter also being in Capricorn, looking to Saturn as their teacher. So this shift of Saturn into Aquarius, beginning the latter part of March through July 1st, is even more significant than usual, because then Saturn will begin to looking to Uranus, the active awakener in Taurus, as his guide, and will actually cross over the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the end of the year, which marks a 200-year phase of awakening beginning on a societal and global level, twice before it actually makes the final conjunction to, or is conjuncted by Jupiter at the end of the year. So in a way, we're getting a preview of coming attractions as Saturn enters Aquarius for what will be the real gateway and beginning of a 200-year phase of awakening, beginning on 12/21/2020. But Saturn reaching that point earlier will give us a heads up to the nature of that opportunity that will be unfolding, especially in 2021 onward. And the first conjunction of transiting Saturn to the 12/21/2020 Jupiter-Saturn conjunction will be on March 29th. And then 2 days later, Mars will have entered Aquarius on March 30th, and then Mars will conjunct that same degree of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the end of the year on March 31st. So we see a real breakthrough beginning as Saturn enters Aquarius on March 21st. Right after the vernal equinox, it begins to open the way to a more enlightened future. So between now and the end of March, we are still feeling the direct challenge to our personal standing in our own lives, in the community, and the world at large, in it being perfected and honed, so we understand and experience what solid ground is. I mean, these challenges have really, for many of us, really challenged where we stand. I mean, what is solid ground? I mean, where can we really put our faith and weight down on? What can we really trust as the foundation of our being? And by the end of March, I think we'll have a much clearer experience, not just understanding, but experience of where we stand and the solid ground that can be trusted. As Saturn moves into Aquarius and opens up the field of more public participation in the world community. And, you know, of course, the presidential elections and the field of candidates will be narrowed. And as we approach toward the end of the year, then that desire to really get involved with the awakening of the community and the choice of our next phase of evolution defined through a president in the United States will pick up speed. But Mars enters Aries the latter part of June, I believe, and stays in Aries until the end of the year, going retrograde. So that is when the real the action begins. So. But between now and the end of March, March 19th, 21st, then we have this springtime awakening beginning to really pick up speed. And then on March 9th, the next full moon, we have a super full moon in Virgo with Mercury going direct the same day. So until then, we will be deepening our understanding of how to align with this higher order inspiration, the power of love moving through our being as the ground of our being with Mercury in Pisces, being a channel for these higher order angelic realms to make their presence known within our personal lives. And as Mercury goes back into Aquarius, then how to reestablish our connection to those who really are part of our soul family and who mirror and reflect the beauty of that angelic higher order love reflected in our personal lives, deepening. And as Mercury goes direct in Aquarius with the supermoon in March, we may then have a much deeper sense or experience of how to express that love in a conscious and purposeful way with those who align with our own frequency. So there's a lot of shifting around and realignment, re-understanding, or reconnection with those, particularly with Mercury going retrograde the latter part of this month. With those, we need to reestablish that higher order inspired connection in order to feel like we are back on track with the higher order mission, the divine mission, guided by love, that we have all been seeking and have been born for. So has your faith been a little shaken through January? I mean, or are you very confident in the path you've been following? Because I've certainly been pretty challenged, but I'm reestablishing my foundation now and feeling much clearer and stronger than I had before.
It seems like a lot of these things will be based on how old you are in terms of your experiences.
Yeah, particularly if you're, 50 years older or older, you've been through the Chiron and Aries transit before. But anyone who's under 50, this may be their first time through, experiencing this particular Aries challenge to their sense of state of well-being. And I know my first time through, being an Aries myself, with Chiron and Aries, I almost kind of lost my way. It's like, whoa, I had to completely redefine and reestablish my own sense of identity, because I felt like part of who I was, or who I thought I was not even true any longer. So many of us need to lose our identity before we can find our true identity. And we realize that, who we thought we were was just like, wow, that was an artificial construct that was created as a response to challenges in my life that no longer fits. And so this is, as challenging as it may be, this is like, whoa, really profound, especially through the beginning of March with Lilith approaching Chiron.
I kind of said that because I'm seeing a lot astrologically mirrored in my sun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, And it's just spot on, not just tonight, but just spot on all the different things I'm researching with him. Not necessarily for me though, which
Right.
is an interesting.
Well, Aries tends to express itself through young people, because Aries is, the symbol for Aries is a little boy. You know, he's wanting to go out and play. That's Aries. Aries is not the god of war. You know, Aries is the enthusiasm for life. It's only when you tell a little boy that he can't go out and play that he gets mad. You know, and starts throwing a tantrum. But he's not the god of war. Mars does not like to fight. Just wants to have fun and enjoy himself or herself. You know. In Native American traditions, we have 4 shields. The little boy, the little girl, the man, and the woman shields. And a shaman will sit down with you and draw those 4 shields in the sand to see which one's larger and which one's smaller. For the man, his power lies in his little girl shield. His ability to be open, vulnerable, gentle, and receptive. That's where his true power lies. For the woman, it's in her little boy shield. For her ability to be the tomboy, you know, to go out and express herself and assert herself and take her own needs and well-being, the need to be authentic, seriously. And that's where her power lies. So that's pretty much what the opportunity with Lilith and Aries for the next 9 months is, particularly for the women in this room. Okay. So, any questions or comments at this point?
For myself, I'm glad to hear March, because I keep getting questions of people calling saying, when is this energy going to shift?
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on. So
Yeah.
at least now I can tell them it's by the end of March.
Yeah, the spring equinox is
Spring,
going to be a
yeah,
real
21st,
turning point,
19th, right.
and particularly once the sun shifts into Aries and picks up that Mars energy.
Mhm.
But Mercury will still be retrograde until March, the early part of March,
Right.
and by March 19th is the equinox, and then
Right.
Saturn shifting into Aquarius on the 21st. That's the big, it's like the pressure somehow begins to lift for the next 3 months. So
Right.
there's a definite lightening of the air, and then when it's fully anchored in is with the new moon in Aries on March 24th.
Mhm.
So it'll be a continually unfolding process there. But I can't emphasize enough how big that Saturn into Aquarius shift really is, because it'll remain there and give us a glimpse of what's coming, and then shift back into Capricorn July 1st, the serious part of it, and then won't shift back into Aquarius until December 17th,
Mhm.
after the election. So, yeah. But it all depends on your personal chart as well, and see what's being activated there. Anyone else?
Is Mercury in Pisces still, or
Mercury's in Pisces now, yeah.
for how long will it?
Mercury will remain in Pisces, go retrograde on the 16th, and then go back into Aquarius on March 3rd, as Venus shifts into Taurus. So that's a significant day as well. And then go direct on the 9th of March in Aquarius, and then re-enter Pisces on March 16th, just before the equinox and Saturn shifting into Aquarius. So that first week of March is quite significant. And then Venus shifting into Taurus on the 3rd of March into her own sign as Uranus' ruler, approaching Uranus on the 8th of March. There's a real consolidation of the power of love, and the feeling of now having grounded that greater love into our personal lives, beginning really to take hold that second week of March. All right. Anyone else? So if you feel enlightened, then just call it an evening.
Okay.
Much love, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.